Hi, I'm Ollie. Welcome to Possibility Space. Today I'm going to read you The Myth of the World's Most Moral Army. Supporters of Israel's military describe them as the most moral army in the world. Their devastating death toll disproves this slogan, but despite that reality, it's often repeated by officials who should really know better. Let's debunk it. I've never known an army to take such measures to attend to the enemy's civilian population, above and beyond what international law requires. American military talking head John Spencer made this claim. The claim rests on the widely promoted fact that Israel does, sometimes, tell civilians to evacuate areas prior to attacking them. So what's wrong with this claim? Well, for starters, it entirely ignores the life-ruining impact that internal displacement has had on Gazans. It also frames civilian warnings as unprecedented when they are in fact a common prelude to atrocities. Warning leaflets were dropped over Hiroshima and Nagasaki before the crimes committed against humanity there. Even Mexican crime syndicates drop warning leaflets on civilian populations that they put at risk. You're at no risk, though, of hearing Spencer praise the world's most moral cartel. Forewarning civilians is not above and beyond what international law requires. It simply is what international law requires. Despite this requirement, the IDF frequently kills scores of civilians without warning. This practice is both loosely socialized through a near total absence of firing regulations and rigidly enforced through the creation of unmarked kill zones that IDF soldiers are ordered to shoot everybody inside of. Disregard for Palestinian life is also demonstrated by the IDF's use of civilians as human shields and their forcing civilians to inspect booby-trapped tunnels on their behalf. Our lives are more important than their lives. IDF soldiers were told when ordered to do this. Here's a quote from White House spokesperson John Kirby. The steps that Israeli military is taking to prevent civilian casualties in Gaza might go further than what the US would have done if it were in Israel's place. Because both the US and Israel assign non-combatant casualty value, NCV, to their targets, we can actually quantify the extent to which this statement is untrue. Israel has been known to assign NCVs as high as 300, meaning that it considers 300 dead civilians a fair trade for killing one suspected militant. By comparison, Osama bin Laden's NCV was 30. This means that the US hold the life of an Iraqi or a Syrian or a Pakistani to be 10 times as valuable as Israel considers a Palestinian to be. A generous interpretation of Israel's low appraisal of Palestinian civilian life is that they have a high appetite for collateral damage in order to swiftly achieve their war aims. What follows will disabuse you of that notion. Another quote, this time from British military talking head Colonel Richard Kemp. Of course innocent civilians were killed. War is chaotic and confusing, and mistakes are frequent. This claim was also echoed by, thankfully, ex-British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. The central lie here is that the IDF only targets civilians by mistake. The deliberate killing of civilians both on the ground and from the air is in fact commonplace in the IDF. A quote from an American doctor who was serving in Gaza here. No toddler gets shot twice by mistake. They're dead center shots. It is also IDF policy to attack non-military targets like public buildings, infrastructure, and high-rise blocks, which the IDF term power targets in order to, and I'm quoting from the IDF here, harm Palestinian civil society. Another IDF policy systematically preferences attacking suspected militants while they are in their homes, usually at night, while their whole families are present. The system they use to coordinate this is called, I shit you not, Where's Daddy? Here's a quote from an IDF officer. We're not interested in killing Hamas operatives only when they're in a military building or engaged in a military activity. On the contrary, the IDF bombed them in their homes without hesitation as a first option. It is much easier to bomb a family's home. The system is built to look for them in these situations. Making matters worse, the IDF knew while they were doing this that their AI targeting system, I put AI in quotes here, it's more of an algorithmic targeting system, was deeply flawed. Human personnel often served only as a rubber stamp for the machine's decisions, just to make sure that the target is male. This was despite knowing that the system makes what are regarded as errors, that is regarded by the IDF as errors, approximately 10% of the time. It's known to occasionally mark individuals who only have a loose connection to a militant group or no connection at all. This seems bad, but at least it's being investigated, right? Here's a quote from John Kirby. Why don't we see what they, Israel, find in terms of the decision-making process that led to this terrible outcome, the killing of 7 aid workers by Israel? That is a White House spokesperson echoing the position taken by Israel at the International Court of Justice. Kirby has since doubled down on his absurd view that Israel, the perpetrator of the alleged crimes, is somehow capable of investigating itself. There is, of course, plenty of evidence that Israel is unwilling to hold itself accountable. It rarely opens investigations against junior-ranking officers and completely refrains from investigating decision-makers at the top command levels. It also drags its feet when investigating. For example, several investigations commenced in 2014 were still ongoing as late as 2022. The result of all of this is that a meager 0.17% of all incidents reviewed by Israel's, quote, fact-finding mechanism have resulted in prosecution. By comparison, the system that Israel uses to prosecute Palestinians has a 99.7% prosecution rate. The purpose of a system is what it does. Israeli intelligence agencies also illegally surveil the activities of international criminal courts, in part to determine which incidents were being referred to the prosecutor's office. Israel then retroactively opens investigations into those same cases and then reject the International Criminal Court's mandate on the grounds that Israel is already investigating. Israel also ran a campaign of bribery, smears, and intimidation against ICC prosecutors. You don't want to be getting into things that could compromise your security or that of your family. These are the kinds of things that they were saying to ICC prosecutors. They wouldn't look out of place in a Marty Scorsese movie. One last lie. There would be a ceasefire in Gaza tomorrow if Hamas frees hostages. This is one of Joe Biden's favourite lines. It's been contradicted again and again by Israeli officials who seem set on sabotaging hostage deals in favour of prolonging their war. The IDF have also done their part to drag things out, refusing to secure territory that they attack, which obliges them to reinvade and flatten territories over and over again. This costly and seemingly self-defeating behaviour has led analysts to conclude the IDF's real war aim is to destroy Gaza and displace its civilian population. This interpretation is supported by comments from Israeli ministers who are self-described fascists in support of ethnic cleansing. These ministers are already holding secret talks with third countries who they hope can be bribed into accepting ethnically cleansed Palestinians. Property developers are already salivating at the prospect of Israeli beachfront property in Gaza. Conclusion. The IDF are at war with the very idea of Palestine. They are systematically slaughtering and displacing Palestinian civilians. They are lying about their intent to investigate their own crimes and surveilling and intimidating the international courts attempting to hold them to account. If you live, like me, in Germany or Italy or the US or Britain, then your elected representatives are lying to you in order to defend the IDF, all while arming them to the teeth. The IDF has no claim whatsoever to the moral high ground, and anybody telling you otherwise is a shameless liar. Thank you for listening. I hope you found that insightful. The main thrust of this particular post was not really anything new, anything that you don't already know, but to bring it all together and really just drive home how dishonest our politicians are being about the IDF and what they do and who they are. Possibility Space is a reader-supported publication. You can subscribe for free, or you can subscribe as a paid member. If I get a couple more paid members, I can get a microphone that doesn't sound terrible. I hope you all have a lovely day and see you next time. Bye-bye.